to everybody from Dementis, and welcome to Let's Review. Yeah, you thought I was going to keep reviews limited to games I've just Let's Played, huh? Well, you'd technically be right, but this isn't a video game review. Instead, it's a top 10 that internet reviewers occasionally make. I myself am a huge fan of top 10 lists. I figured, hey, I've got myself a mediocre review show. Why not put it to use? Thus is from this random thought on the toilet, in the bathroom, that this list was formed. Now, as I'm sure many of you know, I love music. More specifically, video game music.
Nerd. Loser. I think I stepped in dog shit.
But in most video games, there is a group of music that generally manages to set themselves apart from the rest of the music in the game. I speak, of course, about boss music. Boss music has always been the biggest offset from the rest of the game one could possibly get. I don't care how bright, colorful, and cheery the level a person has just traversed is, once the boss is reached, that music almost always takes a dark turn in an instant. More so than that, it is generally the music for the final boss that's the most offsetting. Yes, the final boss, the big daddy the players just worked for hours on end to reach. Best believe that the final boss is going to receive some of the darkest, most intimidating music one could ever expect. I particularly enjoy final boss music simply for that intimidating atmosphere it manages to create. Hence, I'm here to honor this genre today. This is the top 10 final boss themes, in my opinion. Okay, few bullet points about this list I want to bring up. First, I'll be sticking mostly, if not completely, to pictures of the final boss, as I'm much too lazy to go about recording each individual boss myself. Plus, I don't own some of the games necessary for this list. Second, there are, naturally, going to be limitations to this list. Chances are this will knock off a theme or two that you want to hear mentioned. I'll go over these limitations in a minute. Third, this list will contain spoilers. What do you expect? We're talking about the final bosses. Of course I can't talk about them without bringing up how they came to be or who they are. Finally, this list is completely opinion-based. Chances are some of you are going to disagree quite strongly with this list. That's perfectly fine. Just don't go on a raging spree about how you're right and I'm wrong and I should go kill myself slowly and painfully. Or do whatever. I'm a very tolerant person, and such comments I find entertaining. So you give me the view and the entertaining comment, and I give you the list you hate and the rage that comes with it. Seems fair, right? So, about those limitations I mentioned earlier. Number 1. They have to be the original theme. No remakes. I'm sure a lot of people love One Winged Angel, as do I. But the orchestrated remix can't be used here, so you'd be relying on the original tune. Don't hold your breath. Number 2. I need to actually have them. Yes, this is a terrible restriction, I know. But how else am I to compliment how great a song is if I don't have it? Don't worry though, as I have many video game soundtracks chilling on my iTunes. Chances are, if I don't have it, I've not played the game for it. Number 3. Taking a page from the book of Screw Attack Top 10s, Screw Attack Advantage G1, what up? I'm giving this the one game per franchise rule, by which I mean you're not going to see 2 Zelda bosses on this list. Whatever I choose from one Zelda game, if at all, is going to be the only Zelda song on this list. Number 4. Finally, and I sincerely apologize to retro fans for this, but there will not be any pre-Nintendo 64 music on this list. Now, this isn't so much a restriction, so much as a last-minute realization. You see, I grew up more in the post-Super era of video games, and while I know that there are many great tunes on the original NES and Super Nintendo, I've simply not played as many of them, much less beaten. Seriously, the original Legend of Zelda just kicks my ass every time. Because of this, I find myself lacking in retro soundtracks. Again, I do apologize to those who are crossing your fingers to hear some retro VG music here, but I ask that you tolerate my youthful stupidity in this instance. Although if you really want some top 10 lists for those, go check out screwtech.com, where you can find similar lists for Nintendo and Super Nintendo. Trust me, they know what they're talking about far more than I do. Anyway, with that all out of the way, let's go on with the actual list that we're all here to listen to, shall we?
Number 11.
Oh, right, I said top 10 list, didn't I? Well, this is one that didn't quite make it, but I simply found myself unwilling to ignore it, so it gets an honorable mention.
Emperor Bulblax from Pikmin.
Simply put, this song just oozes of Koji Kondo's style. Now, for those who don't know, Koji Kondo is, simply put, the man of music for Nintendo. He makes the music for most everything, Mario, Zelda, and Pikmin, as shown here. Now let's talk about the song itself. If there's one thing that song should do, especially for a final boss, it would be to make it sound intimidating, right? Well, the Bulblax is already a pretty difficult boss, but that organ music is just screaming at you, give up and say your prayers, cause you dead. Seriously, that organ music is beautiful, and that's the reason I couldn't let this one go. Anyway.
Number 10.
Okay, first real boss on this list, and man do we start strong. Brawl's adventure mode, the Subspace Emissary, can be a fun challenge, but at the end, after assuming the final boss to be Master Hand like the 2 games before, players were left awestruck to witness their assumption get blasted away, quite literally, by a mysterious entity known only as Taboo. This boss, just by himself, is intimidating. Slightly resembling the fighting wireframes of Melee, Taboo hovers above the stage in a pose suggesting the presence of a deity. He certainly has the power to back up the possibility. But enough about the boss, what about the music? Well, how about a kick-ass rock beat to open us, only to dive into this twisted synth music with rock accompaniment? Yeah, sounds pretty badass, doesn't it? Sure, the actual song itself lasts for barely over a minute, but that's the beauty of it, assuming you'll be dead before it has the chance to loop. All the more emphasis on how this boss is going to rip you to shreds, especially if you're playing on very hard mode. Good lord.
Number 9.
A lot of people probably first heard the song in Brawl, huh? Yeah, what about my rule about no remakes? Don't you worry your pretty little head, I didn't forget. I'm actually referring to the original theme. Despite being on the Game Boy Advance, the Golden Sun series has an amazing musical accompaniment. But at the very end of the 2-part, now 3-part, but we're ignoring that fact for now, series, the player's final opponent is the Doom Dragon, a giant 3-headed dragon with one move that can one-hit KO your entire party. Seriously, this boss pisses me off like you wouldn't believe. F*** you, Cruel Ruin. This music is glorious, truly encompassing the stylistic battle themes that have been heard through the 2 games. This song gives that potent feel of fighting for the world in its final battle, especially during the middle segment. That's method number 2 of making it feel like a true final boss, not simply by making the boss seem intimidating, seriously, a 3-headed dragon doesn't need it, but by making the resolve feel more powerful.
Number 8.
This one is technically cheating, as it's not just one song, but 3. The Shadow Queen from Paper Mario Thousand Year Door has 3 parts to her battle, each with its own music. The first is simply Peach Possessed, with some dark, eerie music to accompany her. This is fitting because, well, it's the Shadow Queen. What do you expect aside from dark and eerie? The second phase is Shadow Queen at full power. This phase is simply about survival, as she is invincible, and the player is sure to have taken some damage in the first phase. The music reflects this well as it turns into this dark, bubbling nastiness that implies that darkness is going to rule and you are, excuse the pun, royally screwed. Now, before the next phase begins, I feel I have to note what is easily one of my favorite cutscenes in any game ever. I just love this scene so much. Also, screw you, scene! My tear ducts don't work right, so you can't make me tear up anymore. You might have done it when I was younger, but I beat you. You can't make me cry. You can't make me... Son of a... Anyway, after that, her third phase, should you have managed to survive the second, is more or less with her unchanged. but with Mario given a power boost and full recovery through a Deus Ex Machina that I won't divulge to those who don't know what it is. Here, the music gets bigger, stronger, and contains much more of the same powerful resolve that I mentioned with Doom Dragon. Now, Paper Mario fans might be wondering, what about Super Dimension and Super Paper Mario? What about Bowser in the original? Well, as much as I do prefer the style of music in the first Paper Mario, and I do prefer how powerful the resolve feels against Super Dimension, the resolve against Bowser doesn't feel as strong, and the music doesn't make him seem as intimidating as he could have been. I also don't care much for the musical style of Super Paper Mario. Now, while I don't particularly care for the musical style of Thousand Year Door either, at least not as much as the original, I do think the Shadow Queen has much better balance of style and passion than the other two. If that reasoning doesn't make any sense to you, shut up, it's my list.
Number 7.
Remember what I said about the music making the boss seem more intimidating? Yeah, Grant Kirkhope is a genius when it comes to that sort of deal. Throughout Banjo Tooie, all the boss tunes were faster, more intense versions of the level tunes. However, in a much more intimidating, entirely new tune, we have the Hag 1. With the Banjo Kazooie jingle tossed in as well, of course. Funny thing about this music, it sounds similar to another final boss Kirkhope composed for, doesn't it? Yeah, it sounds very similar to King K. Rool's music in Donkey Kong 64. With that sort of similarity, it makes Banjo Tooie, well, being a sequel to Banjo Kazooie, also feel like a spiritual sequel to Donkey Kong 64. Not just in the music either. The hell was that? Oh well. Yeah, Hag 1, the darkest and most intimidating Gruntilda the Witch ever was. Don't get me started on that symbol.
Number 6.
Say what you will about the Sonic the Hedgehog series, the games have always managed to have some kick-ass soundtracks. Most impressive, almost every time, are their final boss scenes. Now, there are so many great final themes for these games. Open Your Heart, What I'm Made Of, With Me, and the always loved Live and Learn. However, despite being Sonic's worst game, I'd have to give this award to Sonic the Hedgehog 2006's final boss Solaris for the best boss theme in Sonic history. I always thought that the song His World was the best theme for Sonic, and the orchestral version here just seems symbolic for the entire series as a whole. Now, if there's one thing I love in my music, it's the feeling of grandness. If there is ever an orchestra or choir involved, and it sounds grand enough, I just melt. While Live and Learn is a great song, more recent Sonic games have been using orchestrated tunes for their final bosses, and they all just sound awesome. Well...
Number 5.
Let me get one thing perfectly clear. I do not like techno. Things like Daft Punk I am not a fan of. However, if it is done right, I love it. Major props to the music team at Valve. They managed to make one of the most obnoxious genres of music sound not just bearable, but awesome as well. This comes through no stronger than in the final battle of Portal 2. Wheatley's in control and the lab's nearing a colossal explosion, and Shell is stuck in the middle of it with nothing but a portal gun and bombs being flung at her. An already intense atmosphere made more so by the electronic musical accompaniment from the rest of the game turned dark and sinister. A true theme that tells the player, this is it, the final battle. Are you ready? You better be. I swear, until Valve released the soundtrack, I would go back through and replay this boss solely for the awesome music. And the kick-ass ending, which is one of the best video games ending I've seen in years, but I won't spoil that for you.
Number 4.
What do you get when you make an entire video game soundtrack out of acapella? A badass soundtrack consisting of voices that sound like electric guitars. Now, the battle against the evil twins is neither intimidating nor strong with resolve, but there's just something about this tune that I love. The music is a good reflection of the boss battle. It doesn't feel intense, it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything big, aside from a giant robot battle. But it still feels fun. Really, I have so little to say about the song. As much as I love it and think it deserves this spot on the list, from a critical standpoint, I can't justify my reasoning for it being here other than I like it.
Number 3.
You remember what I said about melting when it comes to a grand orchestra or choir? Well, in recent years, it seems Nintendo has been trying to turn me into a puddle. This became abundantly clear in late 2008 with the release of Super Mario Galaxy. The final battle with Bowser, while lackluster in the fight itself, came to its climax with an orchestrated piece that made me swoon like a Twilight fangirl. Figuratively speaking, of course. Then 2010 rolled around with the release of Super Mario Galaxy 2. I played for hours, and when I finally reached the final boss, I was admittedly underwhelmed. That is, however, until I got to Phase 2. Bowser is massive, and the music has to ensure that's just as massive, if not more so. All I can say is, it f***ing delivered. Seriously, this music hit, and I suddenly found myself quoting a Lonely Island song without even having to sing. I painted everything a disturbing image of white. Again, figuratively speaking. It was just that damn awesome.
Number 2.
Yeah, you know there's no way I could leave Zelda off this list. So what final boss theme takes home the award for Best Zelda Boss Theme? Ganondorf, of course. No, not Ocarina of Time. Nope, not even Wind Waker, although that's pretty damn good too. No, I'm talking about Twilight Princess. Yeah, seriously, my list. I say Twilight Princess Ganondorf has the best final boss theme of all the Zelda games. Listen to this, just listen to how intimidating it is. It truly gives a sense of the final battle through a feel of darkness appropriate for the King of Evil. Of course, it also contains a large bit of grandness I spoke of previously that just makes me melt. The grand darkness that consumes the atmosphere in this fight is strong enough to leave a person speechless. This makes it even better when the music changes up as Link gets the upper hand on Ganondorf, and the music goes from the grand intimidation to the grand resolve, leading into that final strike that would make everything go silent. Now that's how you use sound to enhance a scene. Alright, before we go on to number 1, I'm taking another page out of the Screw Attack Top 10 book and hitting a recap. Number 11, Emperor Bulblax from Pikmin. Number 10, Taboo from Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Number 9, Doom Dragon from Golden Sun: The Lost Age. Number 8, Shadow Queen from Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Number 7, Hag 1 from Banjo Kazooie. Number 6, Solaris Phase 2 from Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Number 5, Wheatley from Portal 2. Number 4, The Evil Twins from Crash Twinsanity. Number 3, Bowser from Super Mario Galaxy 2. And number 2, Ganondorf from The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Number 1.
Okay, originally I was going to put something else. You see, in this game, there are actually 2 final bosses. Now, in the single player mode, the final boss is pretty damn hard. Seriously, it took me a good 8 tries to beat it once. But the music is fitting for a final boss. Not only is it grand, but it also has that passionate resolve feel that I've mentioned several times throughout this list. Had I gone with this, Ganondorf would have been number 1, and this boss would probably be number 3. However, I knew of the existence of this other final boss, and I got curious. Now, I own the soundtrack to this game, as in I bought it off iTunes, yet I was pretty upset when I went looking only to find that this theme was not on the soundtrack. So after doing searching across the internet, I managed to find this song, and all I can say is, damn! Talk about intimidating! I've not even started on the multiplayer of Monster Hunter Tri, and already I'm severely discouraged from facing the Elatrion. I don't even know what it's capable of. All I've seen are some pictures, and I already am not looking forward to fighting it. Sure, the CD has kicked my ass time and time again, and I'll be with 3 other people when I do fight the Elatrion, but I hear it taking no less than 10 tries against this thing to beat it. Now this is some powerful music. It's grand and it's intimidating. So intimidating, in fact, that I hear no resolve in it. Yeah, it gets no points for sounding like a powerful resolve, but that's okay when it's intimidating enough that there's not supposed to be any resolve left. Seriously, this music alone discourages me from the day that I have to face this boss. Now that is some powerful music. Well, that's my first top 10 list for the show. Let me know what you guys think. Did you like it, hate it, disagree with any of it? Post in the comments below and let me hear your opinions. Special thanks to everyone who either allowed me to use their footage or went out of their way to capture footage that I couldn't. Lastly, I'd like to say thank you, subscribers, as we finally hit 200. To many, this may not seem like much, but for nobody, this seems like a pretty big deal, especially as I went from 100 to 200 in a matter of months. So anyway, as always, until next time, this has been Dementis. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful day. Adios.